But yeah, so far for Season 9, and I think for me is like, I'm having fun with it. I think there's going to be a bit of a playstyle adjustment to tank. And the reason being is multiple things happening as a tank player, right? So when you're playing tank now, not only are you getting 20% damage reduction, which one thing I do think they need to adjust, at least in my opinion right away, is one thing they definitely need to adjust is they need to find a way to let me know I have the 20% healing reduction, right? Now, obviously, I'm going to take shots from them, but like, I'm not going to know that a DPS is shooting me every time. So sometimes as a tank player, I can make a different adjustment based off of that. As of right now, there's no way to know if I have the 20% damage reduction happening, right? So if that's, or healing reduction, excuse me, a 20% healing reduction. So if I don't know that's happening, then I can't play around it or know how to counterplay that. So like, let's say that a BAP is shooting me, but I think I'm getting, I have to assume that I'm at 20% reduced healing at all times, unless I know it's a 1v1 in front of me. That's one of the concerns I have with it, but like, overall, I've had a lot of fun. I think something else they probably need to do and like look into is eventually they'll do balance stuff, which I think is fine. The reason why they didn't make too many aggressive balance changes was because it's going to be a lot easier over the next week or two to get data on how the heroes play with extra HP, rather than try to throw some like, basically just throwing stuff at a wall and saying, we'll see how these buffs are. So I think you'll probably see those changes, but overall I'm having fun. I feel like it has definitely changed the pace of the game. It seems people are having fun. Obviously, some players are going to feel the effect of it more in the sense that like your shots might be hitting more now, which for I think a lot of players, you know, that's not, it's satisfying to hit your shots. You know, maybe they're missing a little bit, but you know, that's going to feel satisfying. I think the next part is really how does it feel playing against it? And I think like as a tank player right now, it hasn't been too bad for me in a sense, as I've made playstyle adjustments. I will say that they do need to tone down some heroes to make them a little bit less effective. I mean, heroes like Orisa apparently play really well. Zenyatta, obviously. I think Zenyatta's one of the best heroes in the game right now. And yeah, and to each person, too. And I can go to this for a second while we're just chilling. I think for, like, each person, too, it's going to be different on how that feels. Like, some person said that their accuracy went from 30 to 50%. I mean, it might feel great for you, right? So, like, for you, that might be a better experience than before. How does it feel when you play tank against that? So what I was going to talk about with tanks is that the tank playstyle has shifted in two different ways. And I'll talk about that very quickly. One, a lot of the time you have 20% healing reduction. Okay. That's the first step. You'll have 20% healing reduction. And two, you have more HP now. So either two things happen. One, you're used to your old HP, so you don't push in when you should be able to push in and play aggressive. Something I'm working on right now as a tank. And then number two, you push too early because you're used to the timing of being healed up by your supports. But with the 20% healing reduction now and the extra HP, you now have to wait longer, right? So two timings have happened where you had all these tank timings for years. Now it's shifted because you have more HP, so you can play more aggressive at times. But then you also have to wait to be healed longer. And so now you have to kind of make those playstyle adjustments. I think tank will take about a season or two to kind of get used to that because it's just a huge reduction in the amount of time that you have to do that, right? So like what happens to me is I'll be at 500 HP. I'll be like, okay, that's enough. That was HP back in Season 8. But then wait a second, guess what? Let me ask you this question as we continue on with this discussion. A lot of people will be like, well, I had 500 HP last season, right? I had 500 HP. So why can't I push in now when I have 500 HP, even though I have like 700 HP now in general? Let me ask you a question. Did you have 20% healing reduction on you last season? So even though it's the same HP, and you think you can play that same way, you now have 20% healing reduction on you when a DPS is shooting at you. Which goes back to my initial point that they need to add a UI for it. So as a tank, you have a little bit of counterplay on that. So you know, okay, the damage I'm taking is not from a DPS. I can play more aggressive for my supports. Or I have 20% healing reduction. I need to either wait or pick and choose my battles here. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of that is going to be a playstyle adjustment for a lot of players. So the overall question is, how do I feel about Season 9 so far? And I still think this might be too early to call or like kind of go into like deep discussion. Not too bad. I've been having fun with it. I think it's a good playstyle adjustment. I'm excited to see that top 500 is competitive again with the new grind for like champion. Rank reset, still yet to see. I think we need more, I think we need more data on that overall and kind of go from there. But yeah, that's my initial thought on that, and I'll continue those thoughts after this game. Oh, hi. Can I have my shirt, Sully? Thank you. What do I think is the current meta team comp? I don't know if there's a meta team comp yet. I think right now, over the next few weeks, it's going to be about finding out what heroes are somewhat strong. more than it is going to be about knowing the meta. I will say, if you have a Zenyatta on your team right now in Season 9, that definitely would be super beneficial. If you're playing tank, my suggestion is that if it isn't working when you have a Zen, and they're not going to switch off of Zen, make the Zen the tank, and you become the support for your Zen. I'm not even memeing that. It will help your Zen survive, and your Zen will carry team fights. Because Zenyatta has so much damage, so much survivability, so much HP. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there with Zen. Is Junker Queen self-heal affected by the DPS passive? Yes, but if I'm correct, it's still buffed. They moved it to 90 now, but if you take 20% from 90, I think it goes to 72. So it's 72 instead of 60. So it's technically still stronger than it was before. But you have more HP now to heal. Does that make sense? Okay, one thing that people have been asking about, do I think they'll adjust the projectile sizes? And the thing is, like, I don't think so. I think this is how it will be for now. I do think they might, like people asked if they would revert it. And I don't think they'll revert it, right? But I wouldn't doubt it if they, like, go through and be like, okay, maybe Zenyatta needs to be at point, 04 instead of point, you know what I mean? So I can see them doing changes like that. You know what I mean? Question for the Season 9 video is a 400 HP Torb. Or you're saying, yeah, a lot of people have been requesting that because they feel like the hitbox on Torb is too large. So a lot of people have been asking for Torb to get an extra 500 HP and maybe a damage increase to go with that. So that's what people have been saying. Is Lucio meta in Season 9? I don't know if Lucio's quite in a meta yet, but Lucio's definitely better. I've gone up against some really good Lucios, and if you play around your Lucio really well, I think you can get a ton of value and make a lot of plays, yes. But I think that depends on a few things happening. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. What do I think a reworked tank passive should be to pair with the new DPS passive? It's tough to say. I don't know if this is a good suggestion or a bad suggestion, but maybe like a flat damage reduction to tanks. Not by a lot, but by like enough to where you can feel the effects to an extent. Like a 5-10%. Even that might be pushing like the numbers like way too high, way too low, etc. So, the passive in general, like I said, the number one issue with the passive, at least in my opinion, is that it doesn't tell you that you have the passive on you from the DPS. And that, in my opinion, is an issue. There needs to be a visual indicator, or at least a way to be able to counterplay or understand as a tank you need to slow down. We need to know that. It's just not like as intuitive to like expect that. Like some people will literally play Overwatch right now and not even know that DPS passive even exists because unless someone tells them or they read like a post about it, they could be playing Overwatch the whole time, not knowing that they're getting 20% healing reduction on them when a DPS is shooting them. So that's why I think there should be at least some type of, at least indicator on that one. So that way you know that you have. Yeah, but this isn't like a visual clutter thing in that sense. You could probably, it could be very slight to know that you have it on. Like it could be very, 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 very slight. But that's definitely one of the things I would like for them to adjust. It would be constant so you can see why they didn't, but it's technically not constant. And that's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, though. Because if the DPS aren't shooting you, I can adjust my playstyle based off of what's happening. Zoras, thanks for the feature finder. Thank you, appreciate it. You said you wouldn't know. Fair enough, Megan. Like, how do I explain this? If I know I don't have the 20% healing reduction, I can play tank more aggressively. If I do know I have it, I can adjust my playstyle. You get what I'm saying? Like, if somebody's pop-shot me across the map and I don't know who it is, right? All right, so let's say I'm getting pop-shotted. And I'm not peeking because I think I have the passive on me, and it ends up being like a tank or like the Zenyatta, then I know that I can probably play a little bit more aggro. Shit, you said you'd give people a week for Champion 1. It's gonna be interesting because they don't even know if anybody will hit Champion 1 this season. Which means maybe they set like a really high, like they made it so it takes a lot of experience and wins to get to Champion 1, which I mean, I'm not against the idea of that if it means that it keeps the ladder competitive. Straight up. That part I'm not against, if that's what it means. What are the meta DPS right now? I'd say Zenyatta is probably Zenyatta, and then whatever else you want to play after that, probably. Do I think Junkrat's that? I feel like Junkrat's still really good. I mean, didn't they nerf the Junkrat projectiles, but then also keep the Junkrat projectiles larger? So, like, the reason why they nerfed projectiles on some heroes was because they were also increasing projectiles in heroes, so they were just keeping it even with everything else. But technically, Junkrat should still be pretty good, right? The hitboxes, I know why they're doing the hitboxes. I don't mind it. I feel like it's made the game feel a bit, I don't know, is fresh the right way to put it? Like, it feels like the game is a little bit more, it's fun, it has a different change of pace. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs to it. So keep that in mind. Like, it's not perfect, but I think they now have kind of a blueprint they can build off of. And I think that part of it is something that I'm excited to see where they go from here. Now, obviously, it could go really well from here, or it could get worse, depending on how they balance it, what they look at, what heroes they strengthen, what heroes they... You know what I mean? So, there's definitely a few things we kind of have to look at overall, but we'll see. You said fresh is definitely bad. I think the interesting part here is that, like, there can be both sides of that argument to where you may think it's bad and I might enjoy it, or vice versa, right? You said hitboxes should be sized by character skill, so the reason why they have it changed the way it is now is because they want to make it a little bit easier for players to be able to hit that, because Overwatch is one of the tougher games in-game and to aim, because there's a variable of too many different things changing, right? As in, like, there's so many different heroes and hitboxes and acceleration and all this different variation of stuff that they're trying to make it a little bit easier there and less reliant on your teammates, because one of the most frustrating part in Overwatch is that when you don't get a perfect team, it doesn't go as well. Hope I'm making sense of this. That's why they're doing that. Like, it's not... It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It just doesn't mean that's going to be, like, specifically... You know, like... It's... They have something to work off now. I don't see them reverting those changes. I could see them making adjustments per hero. Possibly that, but yeah, we'll see. For me, I just also like that they're making more changes to make the game not feel as stale for people, because a lot of games have kind of got to the point now where they constantly do these, like, really, not aggressive changes, but changes to make it so, you know, people, it doesn't feel as, like, stale for some people. And obviously, it's not going to be everybody's favorite changes, but, like, they're finally willing to be more aggressive and make changes after some of the issues they've had in the past with, like, never updating the game, never making changes, etc., right? So, it's, you know, it's interesting.